All right, so there's a big difference between what you can simplify and what you can't simplify in expressions like this. So you've got to understand when you've got one element on the denominator versus when you've got two elements on the denominator. So when you've got one element like this, you can simplify it, and I'll show you how you do that in a second. But where you've got two elements on the denominator, you can't simplify it as simply. So if we go back to numbers, so ignore this for the time being, if you go back to numbers, if you look at something like that, now you can separate that into two fractions. And you get 4 there and 2 there, which makes 6. If you go back to the question, 8 plus 4 is 12, plus the 2, divide by 2 rather, is 6. So that works. Whereas if you look here, if you change this into numbers, if you were to try and do the same thing, you get 3/4 there, whereas here you get 2/12, which is a 1/6. So that doesn't work, whereas this one does. So you can separate things. If you've got just one element on the denominator, you can separate the fraction into two separate fractions. So how that manifests itself is, when you look at something like this, you can separate that into two separate fractions. And then it's a case of subtracting because you're dividing. So 3/2 take away a half is 1. And then 1 take away a half is a half. So that would be your answer for that one. Same sort of thing with this one. You can separate them into two separate fractions. And then again, you're looking to divide, so you're looking to subtract the powers there. So 6 divided by 2, 12 divided by 2 is 6. Subtract 5/2, take away 1 is 3/2, minus, and then you can subtract the powers here. You're gonna have to leave that as a fraction as x/2 there. So 2 take away 1 gives you just x on top, and then over 2 like that. So finally, what do you do in this scenario? So, when you've got two elements on the denominator, you've got to really think about a different way of doing it, okay? And what you're looking to do is to try and factorise the top and the bottom and then cancel. Now, the issue with the question like this is it looks really complicated. But what you want to do initially is get rid of all the negative powers, okay? So if you look at the only negative power there is x to the negative a half at the moment. So you want to try and get rid of that. And you can do that by multiplying everything by x to the half, okay? So when you do that, you're going to times everything by x to the half here. So you'll get x to the 3/2 plus 3x to the half. And then on the bottom, you'll get x to the half times x to the half is x to the power 1, so 2x. And then you'll get x to the half times x to the negative a half. When you add those powers together, they cancel out to leave x to the 0. X to the 0 is 1, so it's going to be that, okay? Now, what you're looking to do then is there must be a way of factorising, okay? So if you look at the bottom there, the denominator there factorises relatively easily to make that. But the top, there must be some factorising here, which is going to help us be able to factorise this. So, and to be able to cancel. So if you take x to the half out of it, then you're left with x here, because x1, 1 plus a half will make 3/2. And then take x to the half out of that, you've got 3. So now you've got that, you can cancel those to leave you with x to the half over 2. So that would be your answer there. So when you've got something where you've got two elements on the denominator, there should be some factorising you can do. But as I said, my advice would be to get rid of any negative powers first and then go from there. So I hope that helps.